Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to SciFest 2024. We're very excited to have you all here again this afternoon. So SciFest 2024 is our largest virtual excursion festival of online learning across Australia for National Science Week. And we're proud to be supported by Inspiring Australia New South Wales that has enabled us to do all of these sessions for free. So we are at the last session of day 4. It has been hugely successful. I think we've had almost 20,000 students participating so far, and we've still got one more day to go. So great to have everyone here. We have wonderful presenter Amelia from Fizzics Education, who is joining us today, talking about plants for life. And you might have picked up, there's a little bit of a plant theme today because we had our plant trivia this morning as well. What we are going to do is, if Amelia's got questions for you, please put your responses in the chat. But if you've got a question for Amelia that she'll get to at the end of the session, please put those in the Q&A. Excellent. I will pass over to Amelia now, and she will share her wonderful program with you, and look forward to hearing all about Plants for Life. Thank you for joining us.
All right, thank you, Karen. Hi, guys. So my name's Amelia. I'm from a place called Fizzics Education. We go to lots of different places, do lots of different kinds of science. Now, we're based in Sydney, but we go all around. I was just having a look. So some of you are in Sydney, some of you in Victoria. Now, as Karen said, I'm going to probably ask you a bunch of questions today. If you want to answer me, type in the chat. But if you have a question for me, type it in the Q&A, and hopefully I'll see that. I love to answer questions about science. Now, as I said, it's Science Week, and we've got our theme, species survivability as well. Plants are actually really good at surviving in harsh environments. Have you ever maybe seen a teeny tiny leaf grow up through a crack in the pavement? Plants are really good at surviving. Now, first of all, I actually want to set up an experiment right now, because by the end, I hope that it's actually going to show us something. This is an experiment you could try at home really easily. First of all, you'll need this. Now, this is a wombok cabbage. I really like to eat this stir-fried with some sauce. But if you can get any sort of leafy green like this, maybe a bok choy or a celery, that kind of vegetable will be really good for this experiment. Now, we're actually going to take off one of these leaves. So guys, just try and remember these steps if you want to do this experiment again. Now, I've got some cups of water, and I'm also going to get some food coloring. So first of all, I've got some blue food coloring. I need a good amount, so I'm just going to dip that all in like that. Then I need some red food coloring over there. There we go. Now, I'm also going to cut my wombok cabbage in half with some scissors. Now, by the way, we'll talk a bit more about how plants transport water soon, but this is a tip if you've got some flowers just to go in a vase of water. If you chop off the bottom like this, this means this part of the plant is ready to drink up a lot of water. So that'll keep your plants, your pretty flowers, fresh for longer. Now, I'm also going to cut this through the middle. I wonder if anyone's going to guess what I'm about to do. I'm going to get my wombok cabbage leaf and just gently place it in my 2 cups of coloured water. And then I'm going to put it off to the side. Maybe soon, maybe towards the end, I'll check it and we might be able to see if anything has changed. Now, maybe you've noticed I've got a pile of what looks like maybe my lunch on the table. It's not my lunch. I've actually got various different plants, like plant parts. I actually want you guys to tell me, it's kind of going to be an easy activity just to warm up, to think about plants. Well, first of all, type in the chat, what is this? I'll give you a clue, it's not an apple, something that looks a bit like an apple. Type in the chat, tomato, tomato, tomato. Yes, excellent guys, a tomato. Now, a harder question is going to be, what part of the plant is a tomato? I'm going to quiz you on all these different parts. I'm starting with a pretty easy one though. A fruit, excellent. Now, sometimes people get tricked and they think a tomato is a vegetable. Now, when we're talking about fruits and vegetables, in science, a fruit is a scientific term. So that means it's the part of the plant that has the seeds. But when we say vegetable, that's actually just a cooking term. That's any sort of the plant that you eat that isn't a fruit. So tomato definitely has seeds. it's a fruit. Now, other vegetables that kind of actually are fruits that you could think of, maybe a cucumber, a capsicum, they're actually fruits, even though we might eat them and think of them as vegetables. Okay, that's an easy one to start. Now, well, I'll just tell you, I've got asparagus. What part of the plant is asparagus? Now, maybe you guys don't like to eat your vegetables, but if you cook this in butter and salt, it does taste good, okay? Trust me. Let's see. Oh, a stalk, a stalk. Now, the kind of word I'd like you to use, lots of you have said it, the stem. The asparagus has the stem of the plant. Now, if you look at a real asparagus in this one here, you might see some tiny leaves at the top as well. Okay, another plant part. Which one should I try? Broccoli. Ew, wait, raise your hand if you like broccoli. Me, I actually love broccoli. I tricked you. Broccoli tastes really good and it's good for you. What part of the plant is broccoli? Let's see. Now, some of us have said a leaf. Not sure. This one's actually a bit tricky. And it's even harder because doesn't broccoli look like a tiny tree? It's not a tree, okay? Oh, a few of you have got the right answer. It's actually a flower. How interesting. The broccoli is a flower. Now, another one I want to try. Corn. Now, guys, corn is actually my all-time favorite vegetable. What sort of the plant is corn? What part of it? This one might be a bit tricky. Let's have a look. Now, some of us are saying vegetable. Fair enough, fair enough. Now, it's kind of like the corn is actually a bunch of seeds, and it's kind of got these little flowers as well, and it has this seeds itself. And then it grows, humans have cultivated it to have this really sweet, soft tasting seeds. Another one, a carrot. What part of the plant is the carrot? So I want you guys to be thinking about all the different parts of the plant. We can use them for different things. Some of us say the seeds. Oh, a few of us are getting the right answer there. It is the root. So there are actually lots of vegetables called root vegetables. They're actually filled with lots of good nutrients because the plants need the nutrients in the roots to grow. So humans have made sure to cultivate this delicious root vegetable to eat for our dinners. And lastly, I have got a banana. Now, we can guess that the banana is a fruit. That's true. So even though sometimes you might eat a banana, maybe you don't see any seeds inside. It doesn't have seeds like maybe an apple would. But next time you take a bite of a banana, look for tiny black specks like bits of pepper. Those are actually the seeds. Some bananas barely even have any because humans have made sure that we only have the yummy fruit part, not annoying seeds. Now, the thing with the banana is I'm actually curious to find out if you know what sort of fruit it is, because it might be a bit unexpected. Now, guys, the banana is actually a berry. How interesting is that? The banana is berry. Oh, looks like one of our friends have got it correct as well. Great. The banana is a berry. Now, thinking of the broccoli again, so there's actually a kind of plant called the brassica plant, and it's the same species of plant, the same one that is broccoli. It's also cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, and kale. Those 5 different vegetables are actually all the same plant. And we've just made sure to cultivate the different parts of the plant in different ways so they are delicious for us to eat. Now, plants aren't only just delicious. Of course, humans have to eat plants to stay healthy, but plants also do a lot for our world. Namely, they give us a lot of oxygen. Now, I wonder if anyone actually knows what is the special sciencey word for how plants turn light and water into oxygen and energy. Does anyone know what this process is called? Oh yes, it's a tricky word to spell. Lots of you have got it correct though. Photosynthesis. Now, photo means light, so that's a good way to remember it. Photosynthesis. Now, it is the plants are using light plus water and carbon dioxide, and at the other end we get some energy in the form of glucose, which is a kind of sugar. We also get the oxygen and a bit of water as well. It's actually a bunch of different chemical reactions. They're quite complicated. Now, I've got a little leaf here. This is actually a Banksia serrata leaf, and it's called a Banksia serrata because the edges are serrated and very sharp. Now this leaf is all dried up, so it's not really the color I want to see. If we compare to the wombok that I had before, see this green color there? This green pigment inside is what performs the photosynthesis. Does anyone know the name of this pigment? Oh, yep, lots of you. Excellent. We have got some chlorophyll. Now, the chlorophyll inside the leaves, that's what gives leaves their green pigment, and it's actually how they do photosynthesis. Now, inside the chlorophyll, so the chloroplasts are actually inside the leaves, and that's what's got the chlorophyll in it. Chloroplast, it kind of looks like stacks of donuts, really small, stacked up, and then that's where the chemical reactions occur. Now, I have a little demonstration here. I'm sure you guys have seen something like this before. This is actually a solar panel. And you know what? The solar panel reminds me of how a leaf does photosynthesis. So I've got a little fan here. With the solar panel, it's not quite the same, of course, but the solar panel here has a bunch of chemical reactions that happen. It turns light and heat energy into electrical energy. Let's see if I switch on a lamp over here. We're going to pretend that it's the sun. I wonder if I can get this fan to move. Oh, there we go. I'm making a bunch of electrical energy here using the solar panel. And it definitely reminds me of how leaves make their energy as well. Now, with the plants and the leaves and the photosynthesis, it's not just green chlorophyll. There are actually other pigments as well. I'm sure you've seen plants out there. Not every single plant has green leaves. Now, I've got my wombok cabbage, but there's another kind of cabbage called red cabbage. I don't know why they call it red cabbage, because when I see red cabbage, I think it looks purple, right? Now, what I've done, a little while ago, I actually got some red cabbage. I chopped up all the leaves and I soaked it in some boiling water. And then look what I got. I got some delicious purple juice. Well, I say delicious, but ugh, ew, that kind of smells like gross cabbage soup. This is another experiment you could do at home. So I bet your parents will be very excited when you ask them to get you some wombok and some red cabbage. They think you'll be having some salad, but maybe it's for science experiments instead. So all you need to do with the red cabbage is you chop up the leaves, get some hot water, maybe you get your parents to help so you don't burn yourself, soak it for a little while, and you end up with this lovely coloured purple juice. Now the thing with this purple juice here, I said chlorophyll before, that was the green pigment. Now the one that's making it red is the anthocyanin, so it's like reddish purple colour. Lots of other plants have this pigment inside as well. But this one's kind of cool because you can actually use it to do some chemistry, a science experiment. Now I have got some cups of water over here. So I've got 2 cups and I actually have another one with a spoon in it because this one I've added a chemical. I've added some bicarb soda. I also have one more chemical, vinegar. Now wait, raise your hand if you've ever mixed together vinegar and bicarb soda before. Let's see. So if you're not sure, the raise hand button's at the bottom. Yep, lots of you. So that's how you can make a volcano, a big bubbly volcano. I'm not making a volcano today. I'm going to test out these different chemicals and we'll see what happens. Now, one of my friends says that this kind of looks blue. Now, you're right because, well, red cabbage, it isn't standardized. Every single sort of red cabbage sometimes looks a bit different. Sometimes when I make this juice, it looks more reddish, sometimes purplish. This time it's a bit bluey purplish, maybe indigo. Well, I'm just going to use it to do a test. So I've got, let's see, I'll take out my spoon. Bicarb soda is in that cup. This cup I'm going to leave plain, and then I also have another cup, which I'll add the vinegar. Now, if you guys remember anything about chemistry, maybe you've learnt about acids and bases in school. So acids, they're going to taste sour, they can burn you, but we also eat them as well. It just depends on how strong. Bases, they would taste soapy, and we usually use bases for cleaning. So I'm going to add this purple water. Well, first, we're going to add it to the plain water. That's called a control. So in science experiments, we always want to test something that we haven't really changed. Let's add the purple red cabbage juice to the water. And yep, it's kind of the same color, but a little bit more pale because it's diluted with the plain water. How about we try the vinegar? Let's have a look. Whoa, that's a completely different color. It's not super dark, but if we compare the two, that has gone pink. Well, now that this one's gone pink, actually, I want you guys to predict what color do you think the one with bicarb soda will go? Type in the chat. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. What color do you think it's going to turn? Oh, some people say red, some people say purple, green, purple, yellow, or green. A few of our friends said they've done this experiment before. That's super awesome. Maybe you can try again with even more chemicals. I'm only going to use a couple today. All right, you ready? Let's see what color it turns. Oh, that's actually turned light blue. Now, I know the colors look similar on camera, but I can definitely tell a difference there. We have got a purpley blue, indigo, pink, and then the lighter blue as well. Now, as I said before, these different chemicals are acids and bases. And the anthocyanin is actually changing color in the presence of acids or bases. It's looking at the different pH. Maybe you've learned about pH before. Now, in soils, plants also need to adapt to the different pH of soils. So you can imagine some plants like the soils a bit acidic, some like them a bit basic, some like them in the middle, neutral. Now there's some flowers out there, off the top of my head I think hydrangeas and azaleas, their flowers actually change colour in the presence of an acid or a base. So sometimes they look pinkish or purplish or bluish to do with the different acidity or alkalinity, whoa, that's just another word for how basic it is, of the soil. Now, having a look over here, one of my friends said, what is pH? Very good question. Now, the pH scale, that's something we use to measure if something is acidic or basic. It's, if we get a bit more sciencey, it's to do with the hydrogen ions inside the sort of chemical that we're measuring. But basically, it's just looking at if something is more acidic or more basic. And sometimes plants can tell us that with the colour of their flowers or the colour of their leaves, as with the red cabbage. Now, as you can imagine, there are different pigments out there. We've got the chloroplast with the chlorophyll and the anthocyanin. Now, it's all to do with the light as well. Sometimes if you imagine seaweed under the ocean, I think maybe you guys did some stuff about oceans earlier this week. Some seaweed is different colors as well because light can penetrate water at different lengths. So on land, the green light is really easy for the plants to access, so they just got some green chloroplast. That's all they need. But deeper in the water, green light finds it harder to reach those depths. So sometimes you'll find like more darker red seaweeds, stuff like that. Now, I'm a bit curious. Should we check on our Wombok experiment? Let's have a look. Ooh, now this might be hard to see on camera, but I actually can see a difference. So let's zoom up. How long was that? Only like 10 minutes, right? Ooh, this might be tricky because we got that reflecting light. Oh, wait a second. Raise your hand if you can see that this side is slightly more bluish. Let's have a look. I'm going to check the participants over here. Oh, yep, lots of you can tell. It might be tricky on camera, but I can see that's actually gone a bit more blue. This means that the blue water has traveled up the leaf. Let's leave that to the side again. And by the way, I actually have another one that I set up a couple of hours ago, and we'll check that soon because I want to actually cut it open. Ooh, do some surgery on a leaf. But how about we investigate how the water actually moved? So if you imagine a giant tree, so we've got these California redwoods that can get hundreds of meters tall, how does water get all the way from the bottom of the roots right to the tip of the leaves? Let's do another really quick experiment. So guys, some of these experiments you can totally do at home. Now, a lot of the way that water moves through plants, something called capillary action, okay? So when water can move, water actually likes to stick to itself. It's like when it's raining and there's rain droplets on the car window, You notice how they all gather in sort of a droplet and then they run down together. Water loves to stick to itself. Now, inside plants, they've got these tiny, tiny little tubes. I'll talk about those in a second. And because water likes to stick to itself, it sticks to itself and the edge of the tubes, and then it can actually climb up. So let's do a quick experiment to show how fast water can climb. So basically, all I've got here is, this is coffee filter paper. You can use paper towel and have a connector pen. Maybe you can use different types of pens. That's an experiment you can try. So you get a pen, draw a line right at the bottom, like this. And then let me zoom up even more so we can see this happen in real time. I'll let this dip into the water carefully. I don't want the line to actually touch. I only want the very, very bottom of the paper to touch the water. And then I'll just wait. Ooh, I can see something happening. I'll even take it out. Can you guys see that? The water is traveling up the paper. So water is working against gravity here, okay? Water always loves to follow gravity, but this time is traveling up through the teeny tiny gaps inside the paper, and it's actually making these beautiful branching patterns as well. So that's how fast water can travel through capillary action. Now, when we're talking about plants, we want to use this word transpiration. So let's get our leaf. I know this Banksia serrata leaf is a little bit crusty and old, but inside the leaf, there are actually tiny pores or stomata. Now, these can open up and a tiny water molecule. So you can't see these. They're very, very small. They're in the air. A tiny water molecule will just come out of the leaf, sort of evaporate out of the leaf. It'll evaporate. Remember, water likes to stick to itself. So do you know what's behind that little tiny water molecule? There's actually another water molecule following it, like in a big chain. And behind that one is another water molecule, and then there's another one, and it actually just keeps going and going and going. A big long chain of water can come out just starting from one. Coming out of one little pore of the leaf, it actually pulls up all the water through a tree, even a huge tree, and then the water from the roots can get attracted into the root, and then it's just going to keep going. Now, inside a tree, inside plants as well, the water travels through special tubes. And, this is actually maybe a tricky question. Does anyone know the name of these tubes? Now, there's two kinds of tubes. One kind of tube transports water, and the other kind transports sugars, or like food for the plant. And I'm curious, yeah, a few of us have got it right already. I'm very impressed already that you guys have got the answer. Now I'm just going to check over the Q&A for a second in case there's any questions. One of my friends said, is eggplant a fruit or a vegetable? Now eggplant, does it got seeds inside? Pretty sure it does. That means it is a fruit. Now remember, some fruits might be tricky if the seeds are really, really tiny. A good question. How many different types of plants are there in the world, or maybe just in Australia? Now guys, I have no idea the answer to that, because I know there's thousands and thousands of different types of plants, and we are actually discovering new ones every day. Does a tree have cells? Yes, plants and trees definitely have cells, and the cell walls on the outside are actually hard, whereas in animal cells that we have, they're soft and squishy. Now guys, these are really, really good questions. I better stop looking through them, because then I won't say anything else, because I just love answering questions. Keep typing those in and I'll have a look again at the end. Now, my question I asked before, the names of the tubes, some of our friends maybe said roots. The tubes are inside. The tubes are called xylem and phloem. Excellent answer. Looks like one of our friends has the perfect answer, and they also remember which one does which. So that's what this little model is over here. This is kind of like if I got a plant and I chopped it across down the top, and I also have the view if I chopped it right across like that. Do you see all these sort of circles in there? This is our different tubes, the tubes that transport water and sugar. Now in the middle, these yellow ones, these are actually the xylem. So the xylems are going to go through the middle. They're a little bit stronger than the phloem. The xylem transports water. Now, I don't really have an easy way to remember which is which. It's kind of hard because the phloem over here that transports sugar. Maybe you can think of it as the flow of sugar, but then water also flows. See? Maybe you guys can actually come up with a better way to remember which is which. Maybe you can think of it as the flow of energy. So the sugars go through the phloem. Now the sugars can actually go any direction inside the plant. They can go up towards the leaves, down towards the root. Wherever the plant is missing some sugars, the sugars are going to move towards that area just through how chemicals can move. It's actually pretty clever. The xylem transports water. It mostly kind of goes up towards the leaf with that transpiration, the capillary action. So that is our xylem and phloem. Now with our xylem and phloem, and also with all our different plants, there's actually two main kinds of plants that there are in the world that we kind of know from how they grow and develop. Now I'm actually going to write on a whiteboard over here to help you guys out. Now guys, it's not quite school. You don't have to copy me. You don't have to write it down. You can if you want. Now I've got this big beautiful flower model, but it's covering my face. So maybe I'll just put it over to the side. Don't worry, we'll have a look at the flower a little bit later. Now I've got some weird drawings up on the whiteboard. This is not the number 9. This is something else. I'll explain very soon. Now these are two different kinds of plants, like two different categories. The top one, if you have a look at my beautiful artistic rendition, that is some grass. Now, grasses are one of the most diverse main groups of plants. We have lots and lots of grasses in Australia as well. They're very well adapted to low water. And I can see that the chat is actually popping off, so I'm going to open that again. Let's see. Oh, one of our friends, it seems like they're a plant expert. They actually know the exact name for these different categories of plants. So we have got the grasses. Those are all the leaves kind of sticking up. They sort of originate from one tuft. Then this red part, that's actually going to be the roots. Do you see how they're all branching out in all different directions? I mean, maybe if you've ever pulled up a tuft of grass, maybe you see all that branching roots coming out as well. Now this is not the number 9, as I said. It's actually a seed. This part is the seed, and then that is the teeny tiny root that is starting to grow. Now this category of plants at the top, they are called monocots. Now, we'll write that down in case you are taking note. Monocots. Now, its full name is, they're monocotyledon, but scientists, we like to just give things nicknames. We'll say monocots. Now, if you know about how, like different words, mono means one. So when the plant starts to grow, it actually starts off with one leaf. So that is our monocot. Maybe I'll add a little drawing there to make it look more like a leaf. It starts with one leaf. Now the second one down here, a couple of us have already said, is a little bit different. This kind of looks like maybe not broccoli. It's meant to be a tree this time. So it comes up with one sort of trunk that starts off, and then the leaves and all the branches branch off at the top as well. And then underneath, the root system looks different too. It's got this one big taproot, it's called. Does that remind you of anything? Yeah, okay. It's like this, one big taproot, and then teeny tiny other bits of the roots come out of the taproot as well. Now this group of plants is called the dicots. Now I'm curious to see if anyone can figure out the difference already just from the words. So if the monocots, when they start, they have one leaf, what do you think the dicots start with? Let me keep up the Q&A and the chat as well. I know a couple of us already know. Guys, even if you've never heard of these words before, I think lots of you can figure it out. Yes, 2 leaves, because di means 2. So let me draw 2 cute little leaves coming off our dicot. There we go, 2 leaves. Now these are our main category of plants. I actually have a little resin model here. Let's see, or here's my remote. I'm going to zoom up so you can see. Now it's a lot easier to see in person, but there is the little seed there that's germinating with this little bit of the root. Still looks a bit like the number 9, doesn't it? And then over here we've got that longer taproot coming out. I know it's definitely hard to see, okay? Longer taproot, and then maybe I'll hold it over here. It's a little bit easier. with the little filaments as well. And those two leaves at the top, there's actually only two. So we can tell that this little bean is a dicot. All right, let's zoom back. You may have noticed there were two big circles on my whiteboard as well. That's because there's another difference between monocots and dicots. It's how the vascular tissue is bundled. Or vascular tissue. Now, we've already talked about the vascular tissue. That's just a fancy term for the xylem and phloem together. Now, maybe you've heard the word vascular before because we have a vascular system too. That's talking about our blood. So, xylem and phloem, have you ever seen sap coming off a tree? Maybe you've heard that called tree blood, but that's kind of the phloem. It's actually leaking out the sugars from the tree. And wait a second, who else likes maple syrup on their pancakes? Me. So you guys know maple syrup is actually the sap from the maple tree. They actually take that sap out, they boil it for a long time to get rid of lots of water, and it distills down and turns into a delicious syrup because it's basically just sugars. Now with our vascular bundles, that's how the phloem and the xylem are arranged. Let's look at our model again. Now, do you see how they're kind of all in a little arranged in a pattern? I'm not explaining it properly. Let's go back to the whiteboard to show you what I mean. With our monocots, the vascular bundles, they're not really together in a pattern. They're sort of all random. So I'll just get a red texture here. We've got some random xylem hanging out, and then perhaps some phloem as well. They're sort of just, you know, inside the plant, growing where they need to. And I mean, it gets the job done, okay? There's nothing wrong with this style. That's just how it's arranged. The xylem and phloem, the vascular bundles are just kind of all in there, all random. Now with our dicots, instead, the phloem is sort of arranged in a pattern in the outside. And then we also have the xylem is arranged in a pattern also around the outside, but usually closer towards the center. So that's another difference between our monocots and dicots, how the vascular tissue, the xylem and the phloem, how they are arranged. All right. Now, I'm actually wondering, because we're already talking about vascular tissue, let's check out our wombok again. I wonder if we can actually see some of this vascular tissue up close. Now, this is the one I set up just before in front of you guys, but I wonder, let's check out the one I did a couple of hours ago. There might not be too much difference, although let's zoom up. I wonder if it's easier to see. Now, when you try this experiment, try and get some wombok cabbage or something with very pale leaves, because it makes it a bit easier to see. I've done this experiment a few times, and sometimes I get the whole leaf to change color. Oh, I can see over here. There's actually some red patches on the leaves. I'm not sure if you guys can see that too, but the color has totally gone all the way up to the edges. You know what? How about I'm going to change camera views so we can see this a bit closer. So I'm going to go down here to my view. I have one that's facing top down. Hello guys. Let's bring over my experiment. We're going to look even closer at these leaves to see the different colors. Now, well, I'm just going to take it out, making a bit of a mess. That's okay. Science is messy. As long as you clean it up after, then it's fine. Now, I've got the food color. It's kind of stained on the bottom. So let's not look there. Let's look closer here. Oh, it's a bit blurry, but I can see some red poking out through the leaves. How about we try on the other side? Any blue? Yep, I can totally see some blue. Now, what if, I'm actually just going to take it apart. What if I use some scissors to cut? So now at the bottom, you can already see it's stained, but that's not much different than just putting food coloring on something. I'm going to cut the whole thing. Ooh, okay. Now, I'm waiting for my camera to focus a little bit. Can anyone see some sort of pinkish color there? I also have another light, which might help. Maybe, maybe not. There's like a pinkish color there. If I had a stronger microscope, I'd definitely show you. Why don't we try the blue side? Cut that open. Ooh, this one might be a bit easier to see. Once my camera focuses, let's try and change the focus. Maybe not, maybe not. There's actually tiny little dots inside the wombok that are a different color. Now, honestly, with this experiment, if I had set it up this morning, we would get a better result. But I was actually very busy this week. We have got so many activities with Science Week. So instead, you know what? How about you guys can totally do that experiment yourself and prove to me that that color you can see through the vascular tissue. So if you try that and cut it open, those round circles that you see with different colors, that's the xylem transporting up the water. Now, we've talked a lot about how plants can transport water, but plants can also transport other things. I'm talking about their seeds, because plants can't really stand up and walk around, right, to make new plants. There's a few different ways that plants can transport seeds. Does anyone know different ways that plants can transport seeds? Write in the chat for me. Let's see. Oh, someone said wind. Now, guys, I'm sure you have seen this before. I have got a dandelion, okay? Now, this is something definitely transported by wind. Well, let's test it out. Yes, a lot of seeds have now fallen on the floor, and I will have to sweep those up later. But that's okay, all for the sake of science. Inside these things, each one of these little fluffy pieces is actually a seed. And they are amazingly adapted. It almost has like a little parachute on top. And that's how the seeds can get transported by wind. Some little seeds look different. They almost like they have helicopter little patterns on the top. So when they fall out of the tree, they spin around and they can spin to the side. Wind is a really good way to spread some seeds. Now, we've got some other answers. Let's see, birds. Yep, birds are great at spreading seeds. Now, birds also really like to eat fruit. So you know what plants do? Plants actually make these delicious fruits for a bird to eat. The bird eats the yummy fruit. They also eat the seed inside. And then where do you think the seed ends up? Yep, it comes out the other end of a bird. So sometimes bird poop will have seeds inside. And that's good because that means the bird has flown far away from the parent tree, and then another tree can grow just from the bird poop. Now, lots of seeds are actually well adapted because inside your stomach there is acid. And some seeds are so well adapted that the stomach acid doesn't even hurt them. They can pass through a body and still grow into a plant. Let's see some other ways that seeds can be transported. Now, one of my friends said flowers. Now, wait. Seeds actually are one of the end stages of the flower. The first thing, maybe you're thinking of something else, pollination. We'll talk about that in a second. Animals, yes. I'm going to get something that might look a little bit yuck. This is a cloth, a dirty, gross cloth covered in farmer's friends. Now wait, raise your hand if you've ever walked around and got farmer's friends on your socks or your shorts or something. Yeah, they're really annoying to get off. Now, these farmer friends have special hooks. They're adapted to attach to animal fur and also human clothes. Now, something interesting is that, you know, Velcro. Some of you might have Velcro shoes. Velcro was actually, people learned how to make Velcro by looking at how different plants attach to fur. So the special hooks, you know how Velcro has a hook part and a fluffy part? The hook part and the fluffy part, scientists looked at plant seeds to help them invent Velcro. So I thought that was super interesting. How else can seeds travel? So wind, animals, and so inside a bird or on the outside of an animal. Also, I'm looking for water. Yes, lots and lots of seeds can also get transported by water, such as a coconut. Coconuts can actually float on water and travel long distances to birds. Oh, not birds, to islands. I got distracted because one of my friends had a question about birds. So yes, the seeds can get stuck to birds and other animals transported to a different location. Absolutely, that is how lots of seeds can get transported. Now, we're talking about how seeds can get transported, but the seeds actually have to come from a fruit, and then the fruit comes from a flower. That's what we're talking about, pollination. So we have lots of different animals and ways of pollinating. So just like how seeds can travel through wind, seeds can also get pollinated by wind. But it's kind of a lucky dip, right? The trees kind of open whatever sort of seeds whatever flowers they've got, the wind blows the pollen away, but it's just luck if it ends up on another flower ready to make a plant. But the most popular way that you guys probably know, animals. Our biggest, most popular pollinators, we've got the bees. Now, guys, we have to make sure to save the bees. Guys, if there was no bees, there would be no coffee. Oh, all your parents are like, no coffee, no way. There'd also be no chocolate. Yeah, okay. So we better make sure we save the bees. They pollinate lots of flowers to make sure our plants are healthy. Now, not just bees, maybe butterflies, birds as well. Wait, they all start with B. Beetles are one of the biggest pollinators. That starts with B as well. Now, lots of flowers that are red, that's usually to attract birds because birds can really see red very nicely. So if you see a red flower, like Australia has lots of lovely red flowers like a waratah or callistemon, the bottle brush, those are usually for birds. Now, if you see a big white flower, especially if it's at nighttime, something like a possum or a sugar glider, that is what they're trying to attract. And even possums, big mammals, they can pollinate flowers as well. Let's have a look at a flower close up. And yes, I'm sure you've noticed my flower model over here. So I've already told you a bunch of experiments you could do at home. Maybe next time you see a nice big flower, a really good flower for this experiment is a hibiscus, okay? So next time you see a big flower, try and have a look and let's point out the different parts of the flower. Well, I've only got a few minutes left of the session, but I want you to type in the chat which parts can you identify on this big flower model here. Does anyone know any parts? Now, there's probably one part that's really easy over here. Now, someone said flower leaves, and I like how you said that because these things on the outside, I can kind of think of them as flower leaves. These are special modified leaves to cover the outside of the flower. They're called sepals. Now, these big pink ones, the word sounds a bit like sepals. These are petals. Yes, you know, when you've got your flower, the most beautiful, attractive part of the flower is the petal. That's the part you probably know. Now, I'm wondering if anyone knows any of these inside parts as well. Ooh, I've got a few. Let's see. Now, I'm trying to pick, because I can see lots of answers, trying to pick a good one. They're all great answers, but I mean one with a good one to talk about. So you're saying stems. Now, the stem's going to be down the bottom. Perhaps you're thinking about this thing. It looks a bit like a stem. This is actually the male part of the flower. It's called a stamen. Sounds a bit like a stem, right? We've got the stamen, and we've got the little anther at the top. This is sort of like a bean, and if you had a real anther, if you shake it, a bunch of pollen would come out. We've also got the filament. So this is the male part of the flower. Now, in some flowers, they're really hard to spot, okay? Especially Australian flowers. To be honest, Australian flowers are beautiful, but they're really hard to see the different parts inside. This big thing in the middle, this is going to be the female part. Now, right inside there, there's actually an egg or ovum. And at the top, we have got the stigma and the style, okay? And that, when the pollen goes there, it can actually fertilize the egg. Then the flower will turn into a fruit, and inside the fruit, there are seeds, and the seeds grow into a plant, and the plant makes flowers, and then it keeps going in a life cycle. So that's how plants can reproduce as well. Now, guys, we're almost at the end. We have learned a whole bunch about how plants interact with our world and how they grow and live and what they do for us. They give us lots of oxygen as well. Now, by the way, we think of plants as giving us oxygen, but there are tiny plants in the ocean. They give us the most oxygen out of any sort of plant. So we also want to make sure to take care of our oceans as well, because if the oceans are too acidic or too warm, this can actually hurt the tiny plants in the ocean. That could affect the oxygen levels. Now, for the last few minutes, I actually want to take another look at the Q&A. I can see it's quite full, and I'm going to try and answer as many questions as I can with the last few minutes that we've got. Okay, let's see. What is the most important plant? Now, this could depend on maybe what your favorite fruit is, or maybe you have a beautiful tree in your yard that you love. Maybe that's the most important plant to you. I can't really say there's the most important plant just in general. Maybe those teeny tiny plant planktons that live in the ocean, they're probably really important. But guys, pretty much all plants are important. Even old plants, guys, even dead trees are important because birds and other animals nest inside dead trees. So plants are important at all phases of their life cycle, even as a seed, as a mature plant, even as a dead plant. The oldest plant, ooh, a great question. Now, I actually can't remember exactly how old, but thousands of years old. In fact, over 2,000 years old. You can do some research later. Now, there is actually a sad story. There was a scientist who accidentally chopped down one of the oldest trees in the world. It wasn't their fault, okay? It wasn't their fault. They were doing some science and they needed to take some samples of the tree, and they just weren't told that that tree in particular was special. They felt really bad, of course. But on the plus side, they got to learn a lot of data about this old, very, very old tree. Okay, let's have a look. Let's have a look. More questions, more questions. The lifespan of an eggplant. Now you mean eggplant of, like, the regular one that you eat? Now, I don't know what my brain was doing. I just imagined a plant that grew eggs, like chicken eggs, as fruits. No, that's not right. Eggplant, the lifespan of an eggplant, I'm actually not sure. Now, I do know with some plants only flower like once a year. Some of them flower all year round. Sometimes they flower once and then die. So different plants have different life cycles. With eggplants, with humans, we probably harvest them, maybe replant the crop as well. It's all different. Why do tree leaves fall in winter? Very good question. Now, wait, does every single tree have leaves that fall in winter? No way, especially in Australia. I mean, it's actually still winter right now. Lots of trees still have their leaves. Now, if they drop their leaves, it's called deciduous. If they keep their leaves, they're called evergreen. That one's pretty easy to remember because evergreen. These are just different ways of managing the energy, okay? Sometimes it's better for the plant to hold on to the leaves because, for example, in Australia, it stays pretty bright and sunny even during winter. That means they can keep growing, no problem. In colder areas, it gets so cold and it's not very easy for the plant to grow, so it's actually more economical for them to drop all the leaves and then store their energy. Once spring comes around, they just shoot up a whole bunch of brand new ones. Now, I know I think we've gone over time slightly, but I love these questions. So if Karen's there, just stop me when you want to. Let's have a look at more questions.
Let's go for a few more minutes. If everyone's happy to stay, we're happy to keep going.
Perfect. Now, question, do different plants have different types of roots? Absolutely. If you remember, we had the monocots and the dicots. The monocots, the grasses, lots of plants are counted as grasses even though it might not look like the green grass that you walk on. The roots sort of spread out in a big web, whereas the dicots have a big taproot that goes down and spreads out. Let's see. Poisonous plant. Now, guys, there definitely are some poisonous plants out there. Do you think you should just be eating random berries that you find on the side of the road? No way. There are some toxins inside berries that can make you really sick. Not just berries, even the nectar or the leaves of plants can be very, very poisonous. So we must never touch or eat any plant that you don't know what it's like. Some can be so poisonous that, well, you can get incredibly sick. Let's see, is there such a thing as a tricot? Oh, I like that question. Now, don't think so, but I'm imagining that it would be a kind of plant where when the seed germinates, it has 3 leaves. So I like how you're using language to imagine different things. Okay, let's have another look. How many pollinations are made per year? But guys, I don't think we can quantify that question because there are trillions of just bees around the world. They can travel to so many different flowers every single day. It's probably in the quadrillions, infinity amount of flowers get pollinated all the time. Although we want to make sure we take care of our trees and of our insects so they keep getting pollinated and our fruits and flowers and trees can keep growing and stay alive for as long as we can, for our species survivability. Okay, and what is my favorite plant? Ooh, hard question. Now, I really like really ancient plants that the dinosaurs would walk around. So something like, one of my favorite plants is the Wollemi pine. It's actually a famous plant. It's a plant that people thought was extinct, but they actually found it hiding away in the Blue Mountains in New South Wales in Australia. They found a few trees hanging out, so it's actually a living fossil. And by the way, the location, exactly where the trees are, is a secret because they are super rare. Okay, why are 4-leaf clovers lucky? This is funny. Four-leaf clovers are lucky because humans were just decided that. If you actually look closely, if you find a four-leaf clover, pretty much all the clovers in that plant will all have four leaves because it's a mutation. Sometimes you can get clovers with lots and lots of different leaves. Like, I think once I found one with 11 leaves. That must mean it is mega lucky. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Now, guys, those were such great questions. I think that's probably going to bring us to the end. Hopefully you try out some of the experiments I showed you, and hopefully you have a look at plants in a new way, especially maybe finding some flowers around and seeing what's inside. So thanks very much. Hope you have a good rest of the science week.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Amelia. That was amazing. So we've had a full day of plant science. And I think some of the participants, if they did our trivia this morning, may have had a little bit of a head start on knowing some of the questions that you had, which is very exciting. Now, when we share the follow-up recording, we'll be sharing all of Fizzics Education's amazing experiments. So not just the experiments that Amelia showed you today, but lots of others that you can do to continue the science fun for National Science Week. So you'll get a copy of those as well. Lots of amazing links. So thank you once again for joining us. Remember, we've got 3 more amazing sessions tomorrow. Environment trivia. We have street science with their science of survival, and we're finishing off the day with a mindfulness session, a sensory sanctuary. So a really great way to slow down at the end of the week. So thank you everyone for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye everyone.
Thanks, guys.